everyone, and welcome to a special episode of The Mind and the Martyr. We are here with Ellis, aka Jacaranda, for a Mind and the Martyr one-on-one shot. This is a new thing that we're trying out, giving people a little bit of a space to dive into some things that perhaps needed a little bit more of its own section than in the usual episodes, and give people a chance to see a little bit more of the characters throughout the adventure. This is hopefully going to be a semi-regular thing. Thank you so much, Alice, for being the guinea pig for this. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. I'm super hyped for it. Before we go ahead and step into that, though, as always, there's a few folks that help keep us going here on Friends Who Roll Dice. Just help keep us on the air and helping things a little easier on our side of things. One of those folks is the wonderful Dice Envy, which you would have seen a commercial for just beforehand. That'll be put into the chat in just a moment here. You can grab yourself some wonderful dice. One of the others is, as you might see below, the wonderful folks at Grinding Coffee, which is a black LGBT plus owned coffee company. At the time of this recording, it is October, so pumpkin spice is around. They usually keep things going for a couple of months when it comes to the pumpkin spice stuff, so I'm hoping I haven't just accidentally dated this video. We'll see. They might have pumpkin spice. They might have something else. They also do a variety of holiday blends. So this should be evergreen at some point. But yeah, go ahead and check them out at Grinding Coffee Co. Throw in FWRD for some money off of your order. You can pick up a sample pack and get a few different flavors, or you can just grab what sounds good. There's all sorts of flavor combinations and blends that suit pretty much anyone. And they do teas as well in case coffee isn't really your thing. So yeah, go ahead and check them out. And of course, we are a Roll20 ambassador stream. Roll20 is an online toolset that brings pen and paper RPGs online. If you haven't heard of it by now, you can go ahead and check them out at roll20.net. They're a fantastic toolset. You can sign up for free and get your games going straight away. Get things set up and bring an awesome experience to your players. Or you can go ahead and pay for one of the pro packages, which comes with a whole bunch of goodies, including some fantastic other features to really step up your GM game and your player game here and there. There is also a marketplace, which has a whole bunch of assets, whether that be tokens or like maps, or just maybe non-copyright pictures or stuff like that, or fully converted TTRPGs that can be just slotted straight into Roll20 and off you go. Yeah, it's fantastic. Go ahead and check them out at roll20.net and start rolling some virtual dice. Roll20, this is how we roll. Alright, sponsorships and stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into this. So we're picking up where we were a couple of sessions ago with the merging of Jacaranda and Ty's consciousness. Mm-hmm. And during this moment, thanks for that, during this moment, there's a deeper connection that runs between the two of you. And though touched upon during that episode, I kind of want to go into it a little bit more here. There's a moment of an emotional flooding, almost. You get a lot of different feelings and a lot of different senses that kind of just wash over you. And you feel your own energies and your own emotions being kind of pulled in turn. There's a very vivid exchange as your eyes kind of gloss over almost with this whitish energy. The entire room that you are standing in, your friends, your allies, fades as this white washes over, and as that energy dissipates and you feel almost a weight off of your chest, this very vivid, sudden exhale of relief almost seems to leave you. As you open up, you see this area in front of you almost kind of pop into place. Almost like bad rendering in a video game when it just kind of pops in the background. At first, it's just this very pretty little section, little circle of grassland ahead of you. Pretty, quite colourful. The grass itself is just healthy and, what you would expect grass to look like in a forest. But there's lots of small little flowers that have kind of sprung up, and some of them are on their own. They're very kind of pronounced. Others are wrapped around some of the blades of grass here. Very teeny tiny, very delicate. And that spreads out as these small, broadleaf evergreen trees begin to pop up here and there of various different colours, but mostly sitting around kind of like the yellow and the orange and red spectrums with some hints of green here and there. It's quickly turning into almost a small grotto of sorts. This beautiful grotto of all of these trees creating both a wall around and a canopy above, and you see this false sunlight kind of coming through and crashing upon the now manifested, huge, beautiful form of Tai themselves. And there is more of a warmth to them. It's almost this little orangey glow outside of the bark and outside of the leaves of Tai here. You see that entire arboric body just kind of lean in a little bit and bring themselves down to you. You're not a short person by any means, but they've got a bit on you. They lean down and just... Well, it's been quite some time since I've had the pleasure. This is... I do not know whether this is the first time you have taken part in this little ceremony, but this is a place for us to talk and to speak and to connect while the rest of the world stops for a minute.
So Jack just kind of looks around with an expression of awe on her face and says, I, I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I I I have a lot of questions um, for you.
I will answer what I can, and if I know how to guide you to that which I cannot answer, well, I will help as much as I can.
Well, I guess I can try to show you some of what I've been through to maybe help you know where I'm coming from. And so she, I guess, puts her hands down into the grass. So she's sitting down, and her hands and even like her feet like will kind of like take root. And then like there's kind of like a swirling of leaves around her. And so Tai would see like a very small jacaranda sapling wake up and look around and get up. Same, very similar look of awe that Jack just had in this space, and start walking through a large forest. There's a lot of animals. She's just kind of experiencing the world for the first time. And it goes on like this. The sapling gets a little bit bigger, and Ty sees Jack come across a small fence with a cottage, and there's a little elven girl who comes out. And at first, she's a little bit afraid because it's a talking tree. And then they start seeing more scenes of the little elf girl and the young jacaranda playing, and just like a very fun and childlike um, sense of adventure, but then it turns to like a very somber scene of like the little girl getting sick and falling ill and not being able to come out and play as much. And so it's like less and less of the little girl until you see her elven parents packing up the house and then packing up a uh carriage type vehicle with all of their things and then leaving. So then again, once again, it's a lonely Jack walking through the forest, getting bigger, and then more kids come along, and these ones are not as nice, and they're throwing rocks, and they're pointing, and they're jabbing with sticks and chasing through areas. So these kids are not ideal. So Jack is like always hiding and trying not to interact with them. And then it comes a little bit later, and then older people are doing very similarly. They're hunting for a creature in the woods. So you see, like, now at this point, Jack is much taller, and she's hiding once more, moving further and further into the forest away from societies and stuff like that. Um, and there's a very long stretch where Jack is just as deep as you can be in the forest. There's no semblance of a society. And she's talking with the animals and helping them with things they need help with, and creating cool passageways for rabbits and squirrels. And let me get off my, I think I'm dinging over here. Sorry about that.
You're good.
And she goes on this way for a long period of time. Once she's older, though, and she almost looks about the age she would be now. So now she has some powers. You can tell she's more confident, more powerful, and can take care of herself and protect herself a little bit more. She starts venturing closer to societies again, but still not interacting with them as much, kind of just like lying dormant and looking as like a normal tree would. If she sees people need help, she will help them, but then as soon as they get help, they leave again. They just go on their way. It's not really a long-term engagement with society. It's just, oh, this person is hurt, or this cart's wheel fell off, and so now she helps them and stuff like that. And then a lot of dormant periods of just being a normal tree at either roadways or intersections or just off the side of a society. And then you see her kind of come across the party that she's with now, and it kind of fades from there. That Ty will know what's kind of going on with everything that's going on so far. Um, and then she will kind of like wake up from this trance with Ty, and the overarching feeling will be one of what's the word I'm looking for? Like not belonging and looking for a place in the world, and almost like questions like how. Um, yeah, so that's what Ty sees.
The large tree-like entity takes a few moments and sits with the information and very clearly processes for a little while. I do not wish to give you pity if you do not wish to receive it, but I am thrilled at your sense of adventure and desire, and sorry for some of the situations that you have been put in. It's sadly not uncommon with ones such as us. We're still very new to the world, really. There's a few of us who are as old as the banishing of the monarch themselves, and some of us who are 10, 20, 30 years old, perhaps. It's we're still very few and still very new, and a lot of people are afraid of things that are new. I am sorry. The the large the large frame of Ty kind of comes back up and straightens back again, and just unfortunately, I don't really know the best way to find what you're seeking because, well, it's a very personal matter. It's a very, well, it is difficult to advise on that, but and they pause for a moment before they reach one of their leaves down and kind of present it and kind of put it towards your hand. And as they do so, yeah, exactly. As they do so, they kind of wait and give you a nod.
So yeah, so Jack will like, as she's reaching her hand out, say, well, it seems like you've found a community and you've found companionship, and I'm very happy for you. And then she reaches out to hold the leaf.
As you clutch on, you feel that same wave kind of pulse over you as you begin to see a formative memory, but not your own. You see this wide open section of what was once a town, you imagine. Um, not unlike, um, not unlike Dewan's hometown. Very kind of, well structured, but quite little. There's probably only maybe 50 or so people at the most who lived here. It's a very small settlement, and it has been torn asunder by the powers of nature. There are sections of trees that have torn straight through houses. There's like one big tree that you could see off to the left hand side that still has a roof on top of it as it's pushed the roof up and never actually displaced it from itself. You can see that roof is beginning to grow like branches and moss and things. You get a very heavy sense of magic in the air, almost like a cloud of just this incredibly potent, almost suffocating magical signature. You see more sections of the houses that have been just torn apart by earth and by vine and by tree. And then the image kind of zooms into one of these houses, and this house has been essentially divided by this huge vine that has just split through the ground and cut the house in half. You see sections of ruined furniture, none of it rotting, but all covered with flowers and grass and all of this kind of stuff. As if this had just suddenly become overgrown in a matter of moments. And at the very, very, very back of the room in the corner, resting on a damaged table, is this small potted plant. And the pot has kind of shattered in multiple places. There's just this one little part of clay kind of left over. The dirt's spilled out. You see these tiny, tiny, tiny little roots, and this small little section of bark which leads to these very small but familiar red, orange, and green broad leaves as they kind of scatter out. The image kind of holds for a moment before you see one of the roots kind of break out of the soil here, and parts of it tumble down, little bits of debris here and there, as this small potted plant begins to waken and pull itself up and begins to stand on its own two little roots and kind of stretches out its leaves and its tiny little branches. And you indeed recognize this as Ty's birth, for lack of a better word. Ty's first experience into the world, and the sense of panic and confusion mixed with this curiosity and desire to know, not unlike your own feelings, as it begins to take a look around the town here, this shattered relic. And very slowly it kind of time lapses almost. You see a little slideshow of time spent in this town. The town's overgrowth continues to bloom and burst, while the little Thai tree begins to get bigger and bigger and bigger. You see, for many, many, many years, Ty was completely alone and just searched that area of the town and the outskirts of it, looking for information, looking for language, basically piecing together what they thought books meant and what they thought stuff did. And it was it's a very Little Mermaid situation, where you see them using a lot of random tools that they had found that had stayed together for weird purposes. For a few years of his time, you see him wearing a little saucepan as a lid, and with the handle of the saucepan, the little opening, he keeps little, like, tools just right there, so he can just take them from the saucepan lid when he can. Uses, like, little scraps to make some resemblance of a little home for themselves. And this kind of continues until one day these silhouetted individuals wander along, wearing kind of just basic cloaks, just a basic adventuring gear, dull greys, dull greens, nothing too expensive. Wander into the town, start looking around, and younger Ty here jumps up onto the side of a building and gives them a wave and is immediately shot at by a crossbow. And kind of begins to panic and scuttle away. as the individuals mutter between each other, and you don't understand what they're saying because Ty didn't understand what they were saying at the time. Um, but they do find Ty as he enters a kind of a defensive posture, as much as a small plant entity can, and there's another kind of flip show, another snapshot of the next few years of his life as he creates a bond with these individuals, and they begin exploring around this area together and around the town and some of the surrounding areas, and that's kind of where this vision wraps up, as there's just this screen, like uh, just this like snapshot of multiple years spent in the company of these individuals. And Ty leans back and straightens up again, just a snippet, but I am no stranger to being stuck in a strange new environment. I think most of our kind end up that way. I understand it's very difficult to find anything to cling on to, really. But I understand, and I can certainly empathize. But I know that's not much of a help. If there is anything more specific that weighs heavily on your heart or your mind, I will be as transparent as I can be.
Well, I mean, it is helpful. It's helpful to know that I'm not alone in feeling that way. But I think I I don't know. It feels like I don't have a place, and it looks like you definitely found one. And I just I'm curious how you found a way to fit in when other people have families and parents that raise them. They've had lovers and wanted them. Uh, these connections, I don't understand the things the way everybody else understands them because I I don't have that shared history. It just I've tried to fit into how I think people want me to be, but it just doesn't quite fit. Even I know Joanne and I have similar powers, but they're not the same. It doesn't manifest the same way, and it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it's the right path, I think, for me. And uh, I maybe something's changing within me. I I'm feeling differently than I once did. I know the suns used to be a guiding light for me, and now they feel uncaring and just so far away. And I'm grateful for the life bringing energy that they do provide, but I feel that the nature around me and the plants, the animals, could just I could have a better connection with things that are present with me here and now, that I can interact with and change for the positive. I've realized the sun has never comforted me the way that other trees and plants and animals have. And I, it's new. It's confusing. And I, I don't really know.
That is certainly a lot to be on your shoulders. I have only met a few of our kind over the years. Maybe 7 or 8 individuals, but I have noticed a pattern, and I will try and not ramble as much as I can. But we are strange creatures. We are an interesting mix of flora and fauna, but we are also a mix of that creative, chaotic energy of the Feywild. Due to the events that happened, there's magical potential in all of us, but there is a divided identity that seems to be a theme. Because, well, the 3 suns up above, they are glorious and wonderful. They give all of the life in this realm, really. Whether that be individuals, or whether that be plants, whether that be connections to the more primordial magics, but that is very much the plant part of us, the enchymic part of us. But look up. Look up in this little space of ours that we have here. There are no suns. Yet we're still here. Comfortable. Or at least, I hope you're a little bit comfortable. We are talking. We are sharing. We are thriving. There's no suns in the Feywild, either. There are no entities, no celestial bodies in the Feywild. I don't know whether you've ever had the pleasure of looking into that chaotic little realm, but the Fey lands do not have any. No moons, no suns. But you know what they both have? They both have trees. They both have plants. And they both have nature. Stranger, perhaps, but it is a common thread that ties individuals like us to both sides. And so I would not worry or fear that perhaps your connection to the entities that you once called or once worshipped, all that means is that you're growing a little more into yourself, and the advice I usually give our brethren is to embrace which part of themselves they seem to enjoy the most, that they seem to have a greater connection with. There are some, a couple, who to this day, I believe, although I haven't seen them in a good few 100 years, still focus a lot of their beliefs around the 3 suns and the way that they work, and there's some that abandoned them entirely and focused on other things. It's complicated when you're between 2 identities. Trying to find out what applies to you and what doesn't is difficult. And I know that can be a very, very scary experience as you're questioning everything and going through what was and what could have been, and especially when you're like us and you hear 1,000 voices in your head when you're sleeping. But it is healthy to question. It is healthy to look into new things. That is how mortal things grow. Not literally, but you know. Just nods a couple of times. He's like the whole bough of the tree, very slowly, kind of. It's like Ents, but
And
worse.
yeah.
Slower.
So then Jack will ask, how did you meet Avi?
By accident. As a lot of wonderful things tend to be. I spent some time, as you saw, with a small adventuring party and learned what I could, and during that time I encountered an individual and spent many mortal lifetimes secluded and learning things. I had a small grove off in a corner in the middle of nowhere in Lathankala. I spent hundreds of years learning languages, learning history, and realized that we are incredibly blessed with an ability to discuss with individuals who are far older than anything else in this world. And it is sad in a way, or at least I felt a sense of sorrow when I found out that a lot of these individuals, they either don't remember or have very poor understandings of their past. Especially when we have such vivid and interconnected memories. It felt sad to see these mortal creatures lose a lot of what made them them. And, well, if you do not remember history, you'll repeat it. So, I travelled. I went all across this planet, all across Vega, and spoke to the trees, spoke to the plants, spoke to the animals, and learned. Spent hundreds of years learning. And during that, I ended up on this continent, in this country, in Salia. I was learning about the detonation that happened off to the north a good few years ago, and what had caused that situation, and what was being done about it, and it turns out there was a small shelter there for homeless individuals being run by Avi. And we had a long and interesting discussion. And he made me realize something. What's the point in being this huge reservoir of knowledge and thoughts and feelings and doing absolutely nothing with them? Avi made me realize that history is a tool just like any other. That memories and emotions, while important, are also tools to a better understanding, to a better way of living, and a few more discussions were had, and I indeed did decide that perhaps it would be worth looking into what I could do with my knowledge, what I could do to help people. Tucky's seemed as good a place to start as any, and we don't know how long we tend to live. I haven't heard of one of our kind returning back to the soil yet, so I quite literally planted my roots and began to help who I could. I am, contrary to what it might seem, I am not actually that magically inclined. My connection to the primordials and the primordial constant is actually quite weak for some of our kind that I've seen, of far greater talents than I, but with age and experience comes, and a little bit of good luck, comes some blessings. So I decided that the knowledge would be more important, and both helped Avi with cultivating plants and being a beacon of knowledge to people who need it, avoiding those who perhaps would be too easily strayed down a more negative path, but I'm not in a fantastic position to judge who the good and bad mortals are, so I just helped who I could. I stumbled into a purpose. I realized that the things that people expected of me and the things that I could have done were two very different things. I could have been something out of a fairy tale, propped up somewhere and messing with the natural world, or I could break out of that stigma and find my own little place, cut off my own little grove, as it were. I understand that's a lot of ifs and a lot of random chance, but sometimes the world will point you in the right place. I've been here for a few years now, rooted, waiting for individuals to come, and have spoken to a great many incredible people, helped a great many people who have struggled for food or for advice, or that one guy who really couldn't read a map very well. But I have done my best, and who knows? Maybe in a few more 100 years, my purpose will change once again. But for now, that is how I ended up here. Everything is a process. Things always change, but there's very specific pulls that our kind encounter. Like I said, the suns, for example, the plant parts of us revere the suns. They love the suns. They, the bastions of warmth and life and the power of rebirth, but they're also up there, as you said yourself, very far away. But, and as one of the branches bends down and picks up something out of the soil and lifts it up, and you can see now this small orange, almost looks like a chinchilla, very kind of puffy tail. It's there, just kind of nibbling on a small section of Ty's leaf that has kind of become dislodged and landed into the ground, and picks it up and just. But this guy, this little fellow, he's right here. He has the power to fertilize soil. He has the power to keep an ecosystem in balance. He has the power to call his friends if he wished. He has the power to change an emotion when someone sees them. One leaf kind of comes up and begins to just slowly stroke in between the ears. The chinchilla kind of wiggles a little before continuing to nibble on the seed. For some individuals, that's enough. For some individuals, it's not. It's a very subjective situation. I guess the question is, enough of what you feel like you should be, what do you actually want to be? We were brought into this world by accident. Maybe there's some kind of purpose behind it that we might find out one day when some divine entity comes to the planet and tells us, but until then, we're just here. With powers and talent and time and all sorts. Where do you feel your pull, Jacaranda?
I do think it's the here. It's the trees and the changing of the seasons and ecosystems and all of that.
It's a beautiful world that we stumbled into. Very complicated world. But it's full of lots of powerful little systems that create something wonderful. We may feel like strangers at first, but that doesn't mean we have to stay that way. We wander and we learn and we share our experiences and, well, we live. We help other things to live too. Not just our kind, but all mortals, really. We live and we help others to live. Most of us, at the very least. But don't be afraid to continue to grow and to change. We don't know how long our lifespans are going to be, but if you look at the average elf, or the average dwarf, or whoever, really, they're not the same person that they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30. We certainly won't be. And we have two planes that we're connected to, two different forces that make us who we are. We have interesting talents. We're blessed with many abilities that many other kinds of life don't get to experience. That's our little wonderful corner of existence.
When when you think about how we were created and possibly why, are you ever afraid?
I used to be. I think it would be incredibly dishonest to say that I never was, but the more I learned about that incident and who was responsible and what I could understand of what had happened, both physically and magically, it's terrifying. When you realize that a lot of your power originally comes from something with a dark past. Suddenly in the background, just
Yeah.
uh, it's always one. When you know that your at least part of your talents, part of your abilities, part of your life comes from a darker source, a more dangerous source, perhaps, it's scary. It is concerning. There's a lot of worries that go through your mind when you find out. Worries of whether it might change you, worries of whether the power might vanish one day, whether there's a more sinister connection between us and the Feylands, but over the years of learning and of studying, I'm no longer afraid. The the monarch was incredibly corrupt. They were an incredibly powerful and dark individual. I don't want to say evil, because that's up to interpretation. Perhaps to a lot of the mortals they would be considered evil, but they were corrupted by an individual and were working off self preservation, and that's a very natural emotion and a natural response to have, so I hesitate calling them evil, but there was certainly a malevolence to it. But at the end of the day, Jacaranda, the monarch was using energy pulled from the Feywild, pulled from this planet, pulled from, inevitably, the constants, the same as everything else is. And, well, I refuse to believe that the underlying energies that created the universe and all of the others are evil. I refuse to believe that those energies are malevolent. I choose to believe that a malevolent individual used a neutral energy for their own gain. And over the years, the more I've looked into things and the more that I've explored and researched, I truly believe that's the case. It's a very, what's the word that the mortals would use? Cliche thing to say, I suppose. But it is truly who wields those abilities that decides whether they're good or bad. That was long-winded and rambling, but it's...
No, it's okay. I Well, I used to hear voices more when I was awake, even, not just when I was sleeping. And I wasn't sure if they were from me or not. And sometimes sometimes they would be dark. And so then Ty sees like goes back to like when those kids were tormenting Jack and when those adults were chasing her, and there's like you can it's almost like a vision of like Jack growing thorny and angry and scary, like just sharp and kind of like lashing out after being chased and tormented. Um, and it's not really sure if this is something that happened or if it was like a daydream type, like wishing, like hoping to lash out and have this power. Um, and then it kind of comes back to where we are in the space. And she says, I I'm still not sure if it comes from just me, and they're quieter now. Maybe because there are more people outside of myself that I can interact with. They've quieted, but sometimes I see things that are dark. And then another like vision comes up, and it's like it shows the um enchimic being that we saw that had that thorned crown that was like really corrupted. And then it goes into like the vision that Jack had of just like that thorned crown. And then that fades into like a view of like this large meadow, and then a crack like appearing almost similar, I guess, to the one that's near here. And so it's like a fissure kind of opens, and it's almost like a decay starts spreading out of it. And then a almost like fire and like lava starts spreading. And then it just like zooms out, and it just keeps spreading and spreading and spreading. And um you see like Queen Elowin's castle like completely destroyed, and everything just getting overtaken by this like decay and fire and flame. And there's just nothing alive except for Jacaranda in the middle, just like alone, crying, like screaming out. And then it just keeps spreading and like zooming out, zooming out, zooming out, the whole world just like decay and fire and flame. And then like keeps going, zooming out, the stars blinking out. And that's like where the vision ends.
The the leaves on Ty kind of retract, and the red coloring kind of drains out, and Ty kind of constricts into themselves a little bit and begins to kind of exude more of a kind of a greenish coloring across as they pull back a little upon seeing this vision. And our powers are volatile, that is certain. The little mortal races get time and opportunity to hone their abilities over many, many, many years, and ours are always there in the background, and there is still the connection to not only the Fae, but also a connection to the Monarch and their small imprint, I guess. There's always a little bit of darkness in everyone, though, in Chimera and Mortal. I guess this is our version of that, to the best of my understanding. This mention of voices is new information to me. I. That's not a. It's not a common thread that I have noticed. I'm sorry that these thoughts and these visions plague you so. If the monarch were ever to tear a hole back into this realm, they would indeed try what they failed at the first time and attempt to wipe the slate clean. Rip this world asunder and create a flat canvas, and a lot of what your vision had entailed there is likely a fragment of that bead of malevolence that exists within all of us. I don't really know the best way to handle that, to be honest. We all have negative feelings and negative emotions, but keeping in control of what you can do and what you're doing it for seems to be the best thing most of us do for that. The voices are concerning. I do not know much about that, but I can certainly ask around if that is something that you would like to learn a little more of.
Yes. If you could, I would like to know more. Again, it's been a while since I've heard them, and the visions, they're not very common, but they are recurring. And I'm just I'm hoping that they do just come from me and not something else.
I the voices themselves, perhaps this is entirely just conjecture, but I think you may have been onto something when you were saying that you were surrounding yourself with other thoughts and feelings and voices. Perhaps whatever these other voices are do not have as much of a hold on you as they would have if you were still alone. Entirely, I guess, but perhaps linked to something subconsciously. What that is, I have no idea, but I can certainly ask around and see if any other individuals had gone ahead and handled that and encountered anything similar that wasn't, well, that was similar enough to this that it would be helpful, I guess.
Usually they were comforting or protecting, and they would help me make decisions. Um, yeah, I think mostly they wanted to protect me, but sometimes it was things that would protect me but would not be good.
That's important to know. And I thank you for sharing everything that you've shared. It is certainly an enlightening experience, as it always is. But it is difficult to figure out exactly where the threads tie with regards to fey magics and the like, but thankfully they are relatively well documented, so I shall ask around and see what I can learn.
I've only just recently met my first other in Kaima. Uh, so I've never really known what I am and what was just who I am. Um, so it's been enlightening for me as well, just to know what's down to being an Enkaima and what comes from just being me as an individual.
What someone is and who someone is are two very, very big and complicated questions, and it is a shame that many of us have to answer both at the same time rather than getting to work on one and then the other. I sympathize and understand the difficulty in that. But we are creatures that are one with the natural world and talented in our natural ways of tapping into the primordial forces, but how that manifests, how that looks, what decisions we make, what parts of those we encounter and develop, that's all up to us.
If if you could also ask about the visions, um, I I think I would also be curious if anyone else has had similar visions, um, just to see if it's something I should worry about or if it is just a worry manifesting.
That is something I can certainly look into. It is common for us to be able to talk with the natural world around us and pick up thoughts and emotions and memories, but what you're describing is certainly not something I've encountered before, so I will find out what I can and I will let you know as soon as I know anything.
Well, I thank you, and I think this will be a start of a new path for me. Just figuring out what kind of power I want to focus on and what kind of connections I want to focus on. So I do think things will be changing and hopefully for the better. And um, maybe the next time I see you, I'll have a lot more to tell you or show you.
Tell, show, either works, but yes, I understand that it's a very strange path that you are currently trying to traverse, but there are ways that a few of us have learned to harness the natural power of ourselves and the world around us rather than focusing on an entity to draw from. It's not something that I had come up with. It is one of the few other in Kaima that had learned to more directly tap into the natural world that we already have a connection with and use a lot of their own essence to affect the constant in different ways. And something that I had resonated with and that I had chosen to study and learn a bit more of. It's not exactly something I can teach. It's something that you would have to.
Do I discover it as I interact with the world?
By the sounds of things and by the looks of your adventures and some of the capabilities that you have displayed,
And you see like Birdie like climb up on my shoulder.
more proof there that you may have already, unbeknownst, started to tap into your abilities rather than the ones that some of us get and some of us never hone. But yes, there are a few individuals who have started along that path themselves, and it manifests a bit differently in everyone, but all of this blathering to say that you may have accidentally already stumbled upon a path that you possibly could explore. And once this discussion comes to an end and we return back to the conversation with your friends and your allies, if it is something that you would wish and that you consent to, there is an old item that I have been keeping in my bowels for an individual who perhaps needs a little bit of direction to properly find their way. It was given to me by the individual that I was talking about earlier. Tharox is their name. Haven't seen them for probably about 70 years at this point. They were busy heading off to the Anathema Expanse the last time I discussed with them, but no, that's a tangent. They left with me an old item that they had discovered during their research and their personal journey that didn't resonate with them and didn't resonate with myself either, but perhaps you would have a better chance. Hold on to it for a little while, perhaps, and see if you have a connection to it, and if you don't, you can pass it on to the next in Kaima that you see, maybe. But if you would have it, I would gladly pass this on to you.
Yes, I would greatly appreciate that.
it may pair better with some of the abilities that you have already discovered. Well, this bubble doesn't last forever, unfortunately, as much as perhaps I wish it might. Is there anything else weighing on your heart or your mind that I can assist with at all?
No, I don't think so.
I must thank you for this experience. It has been gratifying and an utter pleasure to share a moment like this again with one of our kind.
Thank you.
I truly hope that you find the direction that you're looking for swiftly. You will find it eventually, but I hope it's a swift discovery. And if there is ever anything else that you may require, any more questions that need answering, or perhaps just listening to an old tree babble, well, you know where I am, and I don't particularly plan on going anywhere soon, at the very least. I can't stay here forever, but it's not quite yet my time to wander again.
I think the place that you have found is beautiful, and I understand why you stay here.
I did manage to carve out my own little wonderful slice of the world here. Thank you, Jacaranda. It has been a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Ty straightens up, back out, and the branches and the flowers stretch out to their full length as there's this ripple of comfort and warmth that kind of exudes from him for just a moment. You see all of the plants and the trees and the small creatures that have been created in this space. There's a wave of red-orange energy that comes across them once, and they all seem to glow for a moment. There's this very beautiful, almost like a sun glare effect across all of them as one by one, as swiftly as they appeared from the distance and back, they pop, 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 pop out of existence until it is just you and Ty. And from underneath all those leaves, the gnarled bark twists and changes again, and a familiar approximation of a smile across this barky face before they too vanish. You are left for just a moment in this pure white space. Is there any last thoughts that cross Jack's mind before their consciousness returns back?
I think like as the things were like disappearing, I think like Jack's mind kind of went to like the disappearing stars, almost like a intrusive thought. And then that would be the last thing she thought.
As you battle with the comfort of that pulse and the sudden intrusiveness of that concern, the white then slowly fades from the in out, and you are brought back into the room where you once stood, where your companions are discussing away with Ty, and conversations are being had, and there is this this mixture of content and concern that kind of lingers. And as we saw, and the conversation continues, and words are exchanged, and eventually, the staff is brought into your possession. This beautiful, beautiful long staff, and as you clutch onto it, and as this kind of conversation continues, and you're still talking, deep down, you feel a slight change in the staff that you're holding, and there's a small exchange of energies as the longer you hold onto this staff, the longer it feels a little bit more like an extension of yourself. The unfamiliarness of the bark and the wood and the dormant magic within that you can feel asleep but ancient and powerful in this item just feels a little less strange for a moment. Feels a little more natural. And as the conversation continues, unless there's any last things you wanted to go ahead and touch on here, I think that'll go ahead and conclude this little one-on-one shot here, as we got to peer a little bit more into the mind of Jacaranda, which has been
a lot of secrets.
Secrets. Good fun. Good fun.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. That was
I loved it. That was so fun.
Hell yeah. Yeah, hoping that this will become a more regular thing. Hopefully we will have Ellis/Jack back in the future as well to do something cool, and expect to see a few more characters pop up in here as we give everyone a little space to show a little bit more of their backstories and a little bit more of their thoughts in certain situations in the campaign. But yeah, that'll do for this little one-on-one shot. Ellis, thank you so much for being wonderful, as always. Why don't you go ahead and just let people know where they can find you?
I'm Ellis, also known as So Much Geek, SEW Much Geek. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at that handle, and I do a bunch of random art things, sometimes commissions. I never open commissions. It's just like people come to me, hey, can you do this? And then I say yes or no. So let me know, I guess. And yeah, that's the gist.
If I'm correct, there's a link to a store on your Twitter?
Yes, somewhere on my Twitter there should be. Threadless, Redbubble, and Society6.
For all of your beetle wallpaper needs, I think was the last.
Yeah, the largest sale I've had was Beetle wallpaper, which was confusing but cool. I'm curious what that looks like. So
I will never not remember about that. Just be like, okay, that was a thing.
Quite the choice on their part, but I am grateful for it.
Quite the choice indeed.
You never know what people want to buy, so make it available and they can make their decisions.
Words to live by. Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. Cool. Well, we're going to go ahead and spread the love that you've given us here elsewhere. Thank you.
You didn't talk about what you do or who you are.
It's me. I'm Ray. I do stuff. I'm the GM for the Mind and the Martyr, doing stuff here. I forgot to promo myself because that's apparently what that's the mindset I'm in today. You can find me at Red Mage Ray on Twitter. You can find me usually here up front or behind the scenes at Friends Who Roll Dice, either doing things like this or helping other shows to happen and stuff like that. You can find me. I don't know when this is gonna. I'm under NDA for a lot of projects, so I'm just gonna not risk it with when this previews, and just saying, hey, check out my Twitter for things that I'm doing. I'm a professional GM, so I run games. I sometimes get to play in games, and it's wonderful. And I have a Start Playing, so you should go ahead and check out Red Mage Ray on Start Playing. And if you want any games that are as wild and wacky and sandboxy as the Might of the Martyr tends to be, then yeah, let's make something happen. Awesome. There we go. Thank you for the reminder, because I'm rubbish at that. But yes, we're going to go ahead and take the love that you have given us, spread it elsewhere. Thank you so much for watching this this little awesome one-on-one shot. And let us know what you thought. I'm super excited to get into more of these. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Stay hydrated, stay medicated, all of that good stuff. Look after yourselves, and keep moving forward. And we will see you next time on The Mind of the Martyr. Bye!